Hi, this is Matt, and this is Mental Model Monday number 26. Today, I wanted to talk about subject object shifts. These are incredibly important in the development of people and how they think. And if you can learn to make subject object shifts faster, then you can exponentially increase your rate of development and growth and understanding in a new field. So, the idea behind a subject object shift is that what was once something that you were subject to, something that uh, was unconscious to you, something that you saw through, now becomes object to you, something that you can look at, something you can play with, something that is not the way the world is, but is just something, just a way to look at the world. So, subject object shifts, one way to look at them is that they are a way to examine unconscious assumptions. That's sort of the broad, sort of a fake and not quite true model of what subject object shifts are. Is there a way to examine assumptions which at one point were unexaminable to you? So an example of where subject object shifts happen are in Keegan's developmental stages. So this is one model of how adults develop. And in Keegan's developmental stages, he's the one who coined the term subject object shift, I believe. Um, in Keegan's developmental stages, at each stage, the thing that you originally saw as the world becomes a part of the world. So at stage two, your impulses and perceptions, you can view them as um, you can now see that okay, they are not like they're not me, they're part of me. But my needs, interests, and desires are me. That's who I am. That's what I am. That's all there is. Whereas in stage three, you see, oh, the one my needs, interests, and desires are not all of me. They're not all of the things that matter. I can see beyond that. There's something else like those are just individual things that I can play with. But my whole world is now relationships and mutuality and how I interact with others and the relations between people and my friend group. And then the relationships between people and my friend group now become just a thing I see. I'm not defined by that. I have my own value system, my own identity, my own mission, um, and uh, and and that's what I'm seeing through in relation. And my all my relationships and my mutual connections are in relationship to that. And it goes on to the fifth order, where even my value system I now see is just one of many value systems. And what I'm seeing is the dialectic between different ideologies and how they relate and the interrelationships between systems. So that's a series of subject-object shifts that happens well into one's 40s, if at all, to get all the way to fifth order. But you can see how the ability to make these shifts faster and the ability to understand what a subject object shift even is, it could be really powerful in your own growth and development. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a few different ways to look at subject object shifts. I'm going to talk about how they are all actually the same way of looking at subject object shifts, and how they relate to concepts like enlightenment. So, the first thing I want to talk about is turning edges into nodes, which you can also go back at Mental Model Monday number 13, and that also goes into turning edges into nodes. But I'm going to real quickly just re-go over this concept. So, in a concept map, which is like this right here, you have nodes, which are these square boxes. And then you have edges, which are the arrows and the words that connect the square boxes. So edges and nodes. Now, anything that is one way to look at a concept map is that all of the squares, all of the nodes, are things that are objects in your ontology. They are things that you can look at. Whereas all of the edges, the arrows and the words on them, are subjects, are things that you can look that you are looking through. They are assumptions about the world that you have. And so one way to turn to shift from subject to object is to take one of these edges and turn them into a node with two new edges connecting the two concepts. So an example of this is if you have pine is a tree, right? So your original concept map is a way you view the world that you don't even know that you're viewing it. However, if you try to turn this is a into a node, what you'll realize is that what you really mean, what you're really subject to, what the assumption you has here is this idea of woody secondary growth. So when you turn this into a node, what you realize the object is pine has woody secondary growth and is therefore classified as a tree. If you didn't realize that that's what was making you classify trees, you wouldn't be able to classify trees in different ways and new ways and look at things differently. So again, the thing you were viewing through at one point, this is now something you can look at, and you can see that the assumption you're actually making there is that woody secondary growth is a way to classify trees. And just like Keegan's models, now that you know that this is just one way to classify trees, you can look at other ways to classify trees, whereas this is prevented you from doing so. So that's one way to have a subject-object shift, is map out your ontology using edges and nodes, and then spend some time turning those edges into nodes. Now I'm gonna go over another way to turn to have subject-object shifts, and at first it's gonna seem sort of completely unrelated to the previous thing, but don't worry, I will show how these relate eventually. So this is the idea of observing the observer. Observing the observer. So one way to think of yourself is a series of parts that are observing each other. And you represent these parts visually. You have some image for them. This is the glowing thing in my chest, or you just have some abstract thought. This is like a hammer. This is the hammer part of me, right? So you're visualizing them. You can represent them auditorily. Oh, this is the voice that talks to me in this tone. Oh, this is my negative voice. Oh, this is how I talk to myself. Okay? You can also represent them kinesthetically. Oh, this is that rough feeling in my chest. Oh, this is that nice warm feeling I get when XYZ happens. So the parts of yourself you represent visually, auditorily, and kinesthetically. And oftentimes we are subject to these parts. I am the voice in my head. I am this feeling of happiness, or I am this feeling of warmth. I am the hero, the hero I'm visualizing. Okay. Now, how do you turn these parts that you're a subject to into parts that are objects for you to view? Well, the wholeness process, by Conray Andreas has a way to do this. Here's how you do it. You take one of those voices, one of those images, one of those kinesthetic feelings that are located somewhere in your body, and you say, I am aware of this tight feeling in my chest. I am aware of the voice that I'm talking to myself with. Okay? So first you just say the sentence, I am aware of this part. Now here comes the tricky part. You ask yourself, where is the I that is aware of that thing? The I that I was looking through, where is it? If it's that would be some kinesthetically. Where is it in my body? You can also ask, when you say I am aware of this voice in my head, where's the I? Where's the voice that's saying that? You can also ask, I when I see this object, when I see myself as XYZ, where is the I that sees the other eye? So you're trying to observe the observer and say, where is the I? And at first seems like a weird question, but if you just answer the question immediately, you'll come up with an answer. And it won't be, oh, this eye is looking at itself. There'll be another observer observing the thing. And you've now stepped out of this thing you're a subject to, and you're viewing it as an object. Now, interesting thing here, the thing you stepped out of, you didn't step out of all observers. You're now in another observer using this tool. But again, you've made this subject-object shift. So play around with that. I am aware of this feeling. I am aware. I see this feeling. I hear this voice. Where's the I that is hearing? Where is the I that is seeing? Where is the I that is aware? And you can now view that I from a different observational point. So one way to think about enlightenment is when everything is object. You are no longer subject to any observer. You are viewing everything as object. And when you view everything as object, in a weird way, sort of everything becomes subject. This is the idea of oneness. I am one with everything. When I can view everything objectively, I also am viewing as everything, and therefore I feel at one with everything. So this is sort of the idea of enlightenment, is instead of stepping up one level of observer, one level of observer, one level of observer, I'm stepping out of observers altogether, and therefore everything becomes an observer, and everything becomes the observed. Interesting way to go about this. So there's two practical ways right now that you can turn edges into nodes. One is you can try to observe the observer by using this I am aware sentence and asking yourself, where is the I? Two, you can turn your ontology into a concept map. And you can turn the edges of the concept map into nodes. Now the question is, these seem like two totally different things. How do you really understand them as one idea of subject-object shifts? So the visual you can imagine is, imagine you are first person on a node in your concept map, and you are looking at another node. Now the edge in that node is your beliefs about that node from the node that you're on. You might not even notice that there's an I, that there is an observer that's looking at that node. This is just how things are. Which, as you notice, is the same thing as becoming aware of both the I and the unconscious belief that I has, that's allowing it to view node number 2. Now I'm going to go a step further with this and show you how you can do the same process, the same I am awareness process, as a concept map. Okay, this is called PCT mapping. It's by a guy named PJ Eby, although I've sort of added my own flares to it, and it's very similar to this thing, which is from an organization called Leverage Research. And what you're doing here is you're going to map out your beliefs, your unconscious beliefs that you didn't know you had, and see how they relate to each other at different levels of observership. So you're taking this observing the observer thing, and you're combining it with this turning edges into nodes thing. So what you can do is you can start with, at the bottom, some goal you have, some goal that you're working towards. And you're going to ask yourself, what's good about this goal? Why do I want this goal? And that will begin to map out. Okay, I want this goal. Let me give an example here. So my company Verity. What's good about this goal? Well, if I succeed, one example is that I'll impact the world. Well, what's good about impacting the world? Well, I get to leave a legacy. Well, what's good about getting to leave a legacy? Well, I'll get to be remembered. Well, what's good about being remembered? Well, I'll get love, etc., etc. You can go up and up and up and find higher and higher reasons for the thing you're doing. Now, I argue that finding the thing, the belief above the level where you ask what's good about this and or what's bad about this, finding the belief one level above is the exact same thing as finding the eye that is aware of the eye above. And by and the arrow that goes from for instance, impacting the world to leaving a legacy is the edge in your graph. It's a belief. You're saying that impacting the world is one way to cause leaving a legacy. That's a hypothesis you have. That's an assumption you have. And by doing this, you can now examine that assumption and see if it's true. You can turn that into an edge. And you can begin to rewire these set of beliefs. So, just to give a real quick, I'll probably go over this in its own mental model Monday. But so how you do this process, you start with things that you actually do. You ask yourself, what's good about doing those things? You look at things that you're procrastinating on, and you ask, what's bad about doing those things? And then the third question, and then you keep asking what's good and what's bad at every level. The third question you can ask is why. So, for instance, one of the parts in my one of the things that is good is love, and if I ask myself what's bad about love, I get this: I don't deserve to. And then if I ask myself what's bad about not deserving, what's good about not deserving, it doesn't really work. But if I ask myself why do I not deserve to, I find other higher level beliefs that regulate that. So, this is how you tie together this idea of turning edges into nodes with observing the observer. You figure out that the observer is the thing that is looking from each node to the next one, and the edge is the unconscious assumption that the unconscious beliefs that observer has, which you can make conscious. So I hope you enjoyed that quick overview of subject-object shifts and how to have them. Please let me know if this is useful to you. Please let me know what was unclear. And please let me know if there's anything in here that you'd like me to do a future Mental Model Monday on. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you soon.